Have you ever felt exhausted in your search for truth? Have you ever wondered whether the path to self-realization is a long, arduous journey? Do you believe that the truth can truly be found in the simplest of actions, in things we often overlook, like our daily tasks or the quiet moments in life? We've all asked questions about the meaning of life, about the goals and ideals we pursue. We've all, at some point, ignored the simple things, the quiet moments in the whirlwind of life. But there's a story, an ancient tale, that will offer you a completely different perspective on truth. A story that speaks not just for one seeker of enlightenment, but for all of us. This story is about a young man, full of ambition and ideals. He comes to a temple seeking truth and liberation from the burdens of the world. However, little did he know that the journey to truth doesn't always unfold the way he imagined. Sometimes, the truth only reveals itself when we stop, when we begin to see life from a different angle. And this isn't some distant theory. This is a story that could help you shift the way you see yourself. Prepare yourself to explore this story with me. A story that will surprise you and help you realize that enlightenment and peace can come from the simplest of things, from the small, often overlooked tasks of life. The journey toward self-realization is a deeply personal and often challenging path. It is a pursuit that requires not just an understanding of truth, but the courage to question everything we think we know. In this story, a young man sets out on a lifelong quest to find the truth, a search that would transform his life in ways he could never have anticipated. He is driven by a profound desire to understand the deeper realities of existence, beyond the illusions of daily life. This quest is not one of fleeting interest or casual curiosity. It is a commitment to dedicate his entire life to discovering the ultimate truth of the world and his place in it. Such a decision demands not only intellectual engagement, but a deep commitment to spiritual practice and personal transformation. It is a challenge that requires a level of devotion that is hard to comprehend in our fast-paced, distraction-filled world. In the story, the young man seeks out a master known for his wisdom and experience. The master, recognizing the boy's sincerity, gives him a challenge to stake his life on finding the truth. This challenge is no small matter. It is a commitment to push beyond the limits of the ego, the intellect, and the material world. To stake your life on discovering the truth means surrendering the conventional way of life and embracing a deeper, often more painful, truth that lies beyond surface appearances. The idea of staking one's life is not new to history. Consider the example of Socrates, who chose death over renouncing his beliefs and the pursuit of truth. Socrates, in his defense before the Athenian court, famously stated that the unexamined life is not worth living. He staked his life on the pursuit of wisdom and the belief that truth, no matter how inconvenient or uncomfortable, was worth seeking at all costs. Likewise, Mahatma Gandhi staked his life on the pursuit of truth through his philosophy of satyagraha, or nonviolent resistance. Gandhi's commitment to truth was so profound that he was willing to endure imprisonment, violence, and even the ultimate sacrifice to fight for justice and equality in India. Gandhi's unwavering dedication to truth is a powerful modern example of staking one's life on the pursuit of self-realization. The rice grinder's journey. Discipline in simplicity. The rice grinder's journey begins as he immerses himself in the simplicity of his work. First, it seems like a mundane task, grinding rice. However, this seemingly repetitive and monotonous activity becomes the perfect arena for deepening his practice and confronting the nature of his thoughts. The rice grinder's life is marked by intense discipline. Every day, without fail, he grinds the rice, paying close attention to each movement. Over time, this simple act begins to take on a deeper significance. First, the work is done mechanically, driven by a desire to complete the task at hand. But as time passes, the rice grinder becomes more absorbed in the process itself. The clinking of the rice, the motion of the grinder, and the rhythmic pattern of his actions begin to pull him deeper into a state of mindfulness. Through this focused work, the rice grinder begins to experience a growing disconnection from the world around him. The distractions of daily life, concerns about family, material wealth, and personal success slowly fade away. In this quiet space of labor, he finds a rare clarity, a stillness that allows him to connect to a deeper part of himself. The loss of identity that occurs in such a state is a profound experience. The rice grinder ceases to be a mere individual working a job. He begins to transcend the conventional labels that society places on him: worker, man, or even human. His sense of self, once firmly tied to his role in the world, begins to dissolve. In this absence of self, there is only pure presence, a simple awareness of being. This loss of identity mirrors a key Buddhist teaching on non-self, anatta. The Buddha taught that the sense of self is an illusion, a temporary construct created by the mind. The rice grinder, through his simple act of grinding rice, begins to experience this non-self directly. By engaging in the present moment, he sheds the illusion of a separate, permanent self and experiences the interconnectedness of all things. He becomes a vessel for the present, free from the burdens of past regrets or future anxieties. This theme of losing identity is echoed in the life of Eckhart Tolle, a contemporary spiritual teacher. In his book, The Power of Now, Tolle describes his experience of profound inner peace when he realized that his sense of self was a mental construct, and that true peace could only be found in the present moment. He writes, "I was unable to cope with the pain of being who I thought I was, and then, all of a sudden, I experienced a profound sense of stillness, a deep peace. The concept of self dissolved, and there was only awareness." The rice grinder's journey is a powerful reminder of the depth and significance of everyday tasks. In our modern lives, we often seek spiritual experiences in grand gestures, New Age retreats, or mystical practices. Yet, sometimes the most powerful spiritual practice is something as simple as focusing on a single task, being fully present in the moment. This is especially important in a world that constantly pulls our attention in a million different directions. In the rush of daily life, we rarely take the time to engage with a task in a mindful way. Yet it is in these very moments that we can connect with the deepest truths of existence. Personal reflection, the power of focusing on a single task. In the chaos of modern life, the idea of slowing down to focus on a single task may seem counterintuitive. We live in a world where multitasking is celebrated, where we are constantly urged to do more, be more, and accomplish more. However, as the rice grinder's story shows, there is a unique power in simplicity and presence. Consider the example of Steve Jobs, the co-founder of Apple, who was known for his intense focus on the details of design. Jobs was not just a visionary entrepreneur. He was a master of the art of mindfulness in his work. He would often speak about the importance of concentration and simplicity, stating that simple can be harder than complex. You have to work hard to get your thinking clean to make it simple. Jobs' approach to product design was deeply rooted in his ability to focus on the present moment, stripping away the unnecessary to create something pure, beautiful, and functional. Similarly, the late Maya Angelou, renowned poet and author, often spoke about the transformative power of being present. In her autobiography, she describes the process of writing as one of deep focus, where she would lose herself in the act of creating. For Angelou, writing was not just an intellectual exercise, but a spiritual practice that required complete immersion in the moment. She wrote, "There is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. This is the same agony that many people experience in the busyness of their lives, a sense of being disconnected from the present, from the task at hand, and from the truth within." The rice grinder's journey offers us a simple yet profound reminder that spiritual growth doesn't always come from grand, transformative events. Sometimes, it comes from focusing on the present moment, dedicating ourselves fully to the task at hand. and allowing ourselves to experience the fullness of life in its most ordinary form. This, perhaps, is one of the greatest lessons of the rice grinder's life, a lesson that transcends time, culture, and circumstance, the moment of wisdom, a shift from complexity to simplicity. In the unfolding journey of the rice grinder, a moment arises that encapsulates the very essence of wisdom, one that is deceptively simple, yet profoundly transformative. It occurs when the master, after listening to the learned disciple's complex theories and abstract knowledge, decides to accept the humble words of the rice grinder instead. This decision by the master is not merely a rejection of intellectualism or theoretical knowledge. It represents a deeper understanding of wisdom, one that transcends the limitations of the mind and returns to the simplicity of direct experience. At first glance, the words of the learned disciple seem to offer the clarity and depth that one might expect from a person of great study and knowledge. His speech is filled with intricate ideas and philosophical arguments, all of which seem to point to a higher truth, one that can only be understood through rigorous intellectual analysis. He speaks with authority, his words carefully constructed, and his reasoning seemingly flawless. But the master, in his infinite wisdom, sees beyond these words and recognizes that the disciple's words, though learned, are not rooted in direct experience. They are detached from the simple truth that the rice grinder has come to understand. The disciple, in his pursuit of knowledge, has become entangled in concepts and definitions, while the rice grinder, through his direct experience of life, has touched upon something far more profound, the truth that can only be realized when one lets go of the need to define and conceptualize. The master's acceptance of the rice grinder's simple truth is an act of profound wisdom. The disciple's intellectualized view of truth was built on a foundation of separation. Separation between the self and the world, between the mind and the body, between the concept and the reality. On the other hand, the rice grinder's simple truth was rooted in unity. Unity between the self and the task at hand. Unity between the mind and the body, and, ultimately, unity with the present moment. This moment of wisdom can be likened to the story of Albert Einstein, one of the greatest minds of the 20th century. Einstein is known not only for his groundbreaking theories in physics but also for his deep understanding of the nature of simplicity. One of his most famous quotes is, "Everything should be made as simple as possible, but no simpler." Einstein understood that true understanding comes not from complexity or abstract reasoning, but from finding the simple, underlying truths that govern the world. Similarly, in the story of the rice grinder, the master's wisdom lies in his ability to recognize that the deepest truth is often the simplest one. The rejection of intellectual complexity in favor of direct, unadulterated experience is a key theme in many spiritual traditions, especially in Zen Buddhism, where the emphasis is placed on direct realization over theoretical knowledge. Shunryu Suzuki, a famous Zen master, often taught that Zen was about just sitting, or zazen, without any expectations or thoughts of achieving something. He emphasized that enlightenment was not something to be sought through intellectual means, but through the simplicity of being present in the moment. This idea is further illustrated in the life of Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi, in his pursuit of truth, satyagraha, rejected the complexity of political and social systems and instead advocated for simple, direct action, nonviolent resistance. He realized that the complex problems of his time could be addressed not through intellectual debate or military might, but through the simplicity of truth and self-discipline. By focusing on simple practices like fasting and peaceful protest, Gandhi was able to confront powerful forces and bring about significant social and political change. Real-life example, finding clarity in simplicity. In our modern world, where distractions are rampant and information overload is the norm, it can be difficult to comprehend the profound wisdom that the rice grinder and the master embody. Yet, there are moments in our own lives when simplicity and direct action can lead to the clearest insight. Moments that offer a profound sense of peace and understanding. Take, for example, the experience of washing dishes. On the surface, washing dishes may seem like a mundane task, something we do automatically, without much thought. Yet, when we approach it with full awareness and presence, something extraordinary happens. The simple act of scrubbing a plate, rinsing a cup, or wiping a surface can become a profound practice in mindfulness. As we focus on the sensation of the water, the warmth of the dish, and the rhythm of our movements, our minds begin to quiet. Thoughts that once filled our consciousness fade into the background, and we become fully immersed in the present moment. In this state, there is no past or future, no worry or distraction. There is only the task at hand, and in that task, we find clarity. This process of bringing full attention to a simple task is not unlike the rice grinder's work. By focusing on the present moment and letting go of external distractions, we tap into a deeper level of awareness. It is through this simplicity that we can find clarity and insight, just as the rice grinder did when he let go of his identity and immersed himself fully in the act of grinding rice. In a more profound context, we see this principle in action in the lives of public figures like President Franklin D. Roosevelt during his presidency. In the face of the Great Depression, Roosevelt's response was not one of complex, convoluted speeches or abstract theories. Instead, he focused on direct action, initiating programs like the New Deal to address the immediate needs of the people. His ability to focus on simple, direct solutions, rather than getting bogged down in theoretical debates, allowed him to lead the country through one of its darkest times. Roosevelt's leadership, much like the master's wisdom, reflected an understanding that true solutions often come from simplicity and direct action. Master's realization: there is no mind, there is no mirror. In the pivotal moment of the story, the rice grinder reveals a profound truth. There is no mind, there is no mirror. This statement may seem paradoxical at first. How can there be no mind? How can there be no mirror? The rice grinder's words, though simple, are deeply aligned with Buddhist teachings on non-attachment, emptiness, and the illusory nature of the mind. In Buddhism, the concept of non-self, anatta, teaches that the self is not an unchanging, permanent entity but rather a fluid collection of experiences, thoughts, and sensations. There is no inherent I or me. It is a construct created by the mind. The rice grinder's statement, "There is no mind," points to this very concept, that the mind, like the self, is an illusion. It is not a fixed entity but a constantly shifting collection of thoughts and perceptions. The idea that there is no mirror further deepens this insight. A mirror reflects our image, but it does not contain the true essence of who we are. It merely shows a temporary, surface-level representation. In the same way, our thoughts and perceptions act like a mirror, reflecting our constructed sense of self. However, just as the mirror does not contain our true essence, neither do our thoughts represent who we truly are. When we let go of our attachment to these mental reflections, we can begin to see beyond the illusion of self and experience reality as it truly is. This teaching aligns with the Buddhist concept of emptiness, shunyata, which asserts that all things are empty of inherent existence. Everything is interconnected and constantly changing. Nothing has a permanent, unchanging essence. In this light, the rice grinder's realization reveals the illusory nature of the mind and the importance of letting go of attachment to both the self and the external world. In our own lives, we often hold onto the belief that our thoughts define who we are. We identify with our emotions, our fears, and our desires, and these attachments shape our experience of the world. However, as the rice grinder's words suggest, True liberation comes not from identifying with the mind or the mirror, but from recognizing the emptiness of these constructs. When we let go of our attachment to thought and identity, we open ourselves to the peace and clarity that lies beyond the mind. Personal insight: letting go of attachment for peace and liberation. Reflecting on the rice grinder's realization, we can see how this teaching applies to our own lives. The mind, with its endless stream of thoughts, often keeps us trapped in a cycle of desire, anxiety, and self-judgment. We are constantly reacting to the world based on these mental constructs, and as a result, we rarely experience true peace. However, when we begin to let go of our attachment to thought and identity, something remarkable happens. We experience a profound sense of freedom. We no longer feel constrained by our past mistakes or future anxieties. We begin to live more fully in the present moment, experiencing life as it truly is, free from the distortions of the mind. This process of letting go is not easy. It requires a deep commitment to self-awareness and a willingness to confront the parts of ourselves that we have long held onto. But as we begin to release our attachment to thought, we discover a peace that is not dependent on external circumstances. This is the peace that the rice grinder found in his simple, disciplined work. It is the peace that comes from the realization that there is no permanent self to defend. No need to mirror ourselves in the reflections of others or the world. In this way, the rice grinder's journey offers a powerful lesson in the art of living, one that calls us to let go of our attachments, to stop chasing after the illusory self, and to find peace in the simplicity of being present. This is the wisdom that the Master recognized, and it is the wisdom that we can all cultivate in our own lives. So, we've followed the story of the young man and his teacher in the temple. What do you think about the lesson this story brings? Isn't it true that sometimes we search for truth in distant places, only to find that the simplest, most mundane moments in life hold the key? We live in a world full of worries, and it's easy to get swept away in the endless cycle of work, relationships, and thoughts. But this story reminds us that sometimes enlightenment doesn't come from grand gestures. It comes from living fully in the present, in every little action. Just like the young man in the story, we need to learn how to let go of unnecessary thoughts, worries, and attachments, and find peace within ourselves. In simplicity, in the everyday tasks, we can discover the truth and the peace we have always sought. So, are you ready to look at your own life in a new light? Are you ready to start living fully in the moment, finding enlightenment in the simple things? Leave a comment below to share your thoughts on the story and the lessons you've learned. I'd love to hear your insights and continue our journey together towards peace and wisdom. If you found this story helpful and believe it can offer someone else a fresh perspective, don't forget to hit the like button and share this video to spread the message. Also, if you want to continue watching videos about Buddhist teachings, enlightenment, and valuable life lessons, be sure to subscribe to Buddhist Echoes and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on any upcoming videos. Thank you for taking the time to watch. I hope this story has helped bring a sense of peace and mindfulness to your heart. Wishing you a day filled with serenity and happiness.